public finances. Will that be achieved? I don't believe so. Restoring the damaged system to get credit flowing again, will that be achieved? Maybe. You know, the jury is out at the moment, but I certainly think, at least in relation to the banking sector, there is a plan in place. We need to regain, the budget stated we need to regain competitiveness. I saw nothing in the budget that would enhance the competitiveness of this country. I believed VAT rates should have been cut. I believe that there should have been a temporary holiday for employer PRSI payments to try and stimulate a little bit of employment creation in the economy. So I don't believe the budget achieved that. Did it do anything to protect jobs? No. Did it do anything to support and stimulate economic confidence? No. Will it restore the reputation of Ireland abroad? Brian Lenihan mentioned banking situation and the Lisbon Treaty as two issues there. I think the bank plan that has been put in place, as I say, the jury is out, but at least there is a plan in place, so maybe we start to address that. My biggest criticism of the budget really was that I don't believe you can actually tax your way out of a recession. It's very easy to tax your way into a deeper recession. So I am and have been extremely critical of the focus on increasing taxes rather than addressing the elephant in the room, which is spending. And to me, one of the biggest dangers is that when people get their pay slips in May, they're going to get one hell of a shock. And unfortunately, they've been promised a lot more of the same next December. So I think the focus of policy making is wrong. We need to address spending rather than taxation, because I cannot envisage a situation where this economy will be capable of taxing its way out of this recession. In relation to the banking situation, the measure in the budget was obviously the creation of the National Asset Management Agency. There is still a huge number of questions to be answered there about how it's going to operate, the price that's going to be paid for the assets, but at least there is a plan in place. It's going to take a while to implement it, but the bottom line is whether we see nationalisation of AIB or Bank of Ireland or not, and I think there's a huge probability that we will. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter whether the banking system is owned by the state or privately owned. The bottom line is we have to repair bank balance sheets. We have to get banks back into the business of expanding credit into the economy again. So finally, what are the effects of the financial crisis? I think you're well aware of these issues. It has created an extremely difficult investment background, historically low interest rates, global economic recession, the global banking system and our own indeed in serious difficulty, traditional credit lines under serious pressure. One of the problems for the banking sector is that you cannot force banks to lend money. At the end of the day, when you're in a recession, by definition, all borrowing propositions are riskier anyway. So there's going to be a very difficult balance to be achieved by government vis-a-vis the banking system in terms of where the credit is going to go in the economy. Irish repayment capacity seriously under threat at the moment from the deteriorating labour market and also from the tax increases that are coming through and that will continue to come through. So I suppose at the end of the day, for all businesses, managing the credit situation is going to be extremely tricky over the next couple of years, and there's huge potential for bad debts to rise across the economy. And the other point, I suppose, about the mortgage market, we know I would estimate there's 250,000 people by the end of this year will be in a negative equity situation. It's going to take some time to work a way out of that situation. So there is no doubt about it, at the end of the day, Ireland does find itself in an extremely challenging position. But provided we do the right things, we are going to manage our way out of this. The next couple of years will be difficult, but we do need a strategic vision for Ireland, and I've tried to outline very quickly what I believe we need to be looking at. We need, most importantly of all, strong, effective leadership that people will buy into. We need the promotion of an entrepreneurial culture, because there's a strong sense out there at the moment that market economics, the free market economics has failed, and that we should be going back to a strong left-wing type position. And indeed, I took part in a public debate a couple of weeks ago under the banner of the Socialist Party of Ireland. I debated the future of socialism, the future of capitalism with Joe Higgins. 150 people at it, 149 versus 1. But there is a very strong sense out there that free market economics has failed, and that the socialist version is what we should now be starting to pursue. I think we need to be very, very careful about that. We need sane leadership globally and domestically to ensure that we continue to promote an entrepreneurial culture in this country. And at the end of the day, the only way we will sort out the crisis in the public finances, the crisis in the labour market, and the general economic crisis is through high quality economic growth. And if we do the right things, we can get back on track. But there's no doubt whatsoever about it. Ireland does find itself in an extremely challenging and difficult position at the moment. And if we make policy mistakes here, the recession is going to be prolonged. So I think it's up to you as business leaders, as a business lobby group, to try and get that message across the government that they've got to focus on the public spending issue rather than trying to tax our way out of this recession, which cannot work in my view. So thank you very much for the courtesy of listening to me this morning. Skipped through a lot of stuff fairly quickly. I hope I haven't depressed you totally, but I've tried to present a realistic picture of where we are, and provided we do the right things as an economy, we will emerge. So thank you very much, and the best of luck in the future.
Thanks very much, Jim. We'll open it up for a Q&A, so if anybody has any questions, they can just stand up, ask the question, and Jim will do his level best, I'm sure, to answer them.
Yeah.
Just here. Go ahead.
Just in relation to the government spending, by how much do you think spending in the public services should drop?
Right. The reality of the situation this year is that we're going to take in around 30 billion in taxation. That's about 3 to 3.5 billion less than the government expects. Okay, so 30 billion to me is a realistic assessment. On the spending side, it's going to cost 58 to 60 billion to run the country. So there's a gap there of approximately 30 billion. I believe, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to figure it out, you could take 5 billion out of spending without anybody noticing. It's a question of efficiency in terms of how public spending is delivered. We know a lot of the stories, and unfortunately a lot of it is water under the bridge and it cannot be reversed. The waste of money on voting machines, for example, the waste of money on the decentralisation process. I think if people realised how much property the state has bought in this country over the last 2 or 3 years, which will never be utilised for its intended purpose. Now, there's been a huge waste of money, but there's nothing at this juncture you can do about that, because having a fire sale of those assets at this stage would not be possible and would not be desirable. But we need to look at, Martin Manser, I saw a figure from him recently where he said 8 billion is spent per annum on running the quangos in the country. You could take 3 or 4 billion out of that very easily without anybody noticing. You just make the thing more efficient. We need to look at every single element of public spending, just as you would do in a business if you're experiencing these difficulties. You go through a root and branch examination, and hopefully when Colin McCarthy's board SNP reports over the coming months, they will be making very strong recommendations on taking out wasteful spending. But I'd say I think 5 billion could very easily be taken out without having a negative impact on the economy. Whereas if you take 5 billion out through increased taxation, the economic impact of that is much, much more negative and severe. So there's no easy answers here. It's just a question of root and branch examination of all spending.